Now, I'm welcoming you all to this year's 2017 Southern Africa Regional Conference. And as we come to the end of our fellowship year, and as we begin the process of transitioning from fellows to alumni, we should take time to reflect on our individual leadership journeys. Some started many, many years ago. Other journeys started not so long ago. But I think through the fellowship that we are all a part of, we shared a common heritage, a common experience, a common bond that brought us all together. And that is where our various and individual leadership journeys came onto one path. But after this conference, our journeys will continue back onto our individual paths and journeys. So let's take a moment to reflect on the past year, our fellowship year that's coming to an end. The time and the program and the fellowship that brought us together, the fellowship that introduced us to each other, the fellowship that created this network that is going to live for years and years, if not, this is a lifetime family that you have been a part of, thanks to the Mandela Washington Fellowship. My own leadership journey started many, many years ago, and a number of stories and incidences along that journey have shaped who I am today and the kind of leader that I am. I'll share one story. When I finished high school, my first after-school job was as a front office receptionist at Protea Hotels in Chingola. And I was fired on my first day. So when I got to the hotel, everybody else knew that the owner of this hotel didn't like people standing around idle doing nothing because he felt that these people are stealing his money, he's paying them for doing nothing, but they didn't tell me. So when I got there, they said, just stand, this is a hotel that hasn't yet opened. We're still scraping tile fix off the tiles. We're still putting final touches to the fittings in the hotel. And they told me, just stand at reception and take inquiries. Inquiries for a hotel that hasn't opened. So I stood there, and stood there, and stood there. And the owner of this hotel, he came in, he walked once, he walked the second time, he passed the third time, the fourth time he stopped and looked at me. I said, what are you doing here? I'm working. He said, no, you're standing there like a statue. You're the people who are stealing my money. What are you doing? So I looked around. Fortunately, there was a broom in the corner. I picked up the broom and started sweeping. I looked up, he was still there. I swept and swept and swept. I looked up, he was still there. I swept and swept some more, he was still there. Moments later, he told the supervisor to get rid of this guy. He's stealing my money. He's not working. He's standing there like a statue. These are the people who steal my money. And I was fired on the first day. Now that incident had a way of resolving itself, and a year later when I was resigning and going to university, I left as the best employee at that hotel. I left with a killer recommendation letter. And what was my lesson from that experience? As a leader, you may often be the first target. You may often be the one who will fall first. But then it's up to you to be the first one to rise. When you fall, your team may fall. When you fall, the people who follow you may fall, but you must be the first person to rise up, to get up and keep going. And everybody else will get up and follow suit. Some years later, or rather a few months later, as I was preparing to go to university, I had some lofty dreams. Lofty dreams of studying in America. Little did I know that 17 years later, that dream would be fulfilled as I would spend 6 weeks at Rutgers University, the best university in the US. Lofty dreams of getting on a ship, getting on a plane and crossing the ocean and going to another continent, another land where opportunities are better, where they do things in a better way, where they seem to have better ideas, better solutions, and better problems. But that was a lofty dream of a young man who didn't really know the history and the heritage of his continent. A young man who didn't know the wealth of knowledge, experience, and capability that was there, that could be found amongst his people. And that reminds me of a story of a lady called Rabia. Now, a story is told of a woman called Rabia, and one evening, people saw her searching for something in the street in front of her hut. They gathered together, the poor old lady was searching for something, and they asked, "What is the matter? What are you searching for?" And she said, I've lost my needle. And so they started helping. They searched and searched and searched. They helped her look and look and look, but they couldn't find anything. At last, somebody asked, Rabia, the street is big and the night is fast upon us. Tell us, where did you lose the needle? It may be easier for us to find it. And she told them, I lost the needle in the house. I lost the needle in the house. And then somebody said, if you don't tell us exactly, but they said, but if you lost the needle in the house, then why are you looking for it outside? And she said, there's no light in the house. All the light is outside. And so I said, have you run mad, Rabia? Why don't you take the light that's outside and take the light inside the house to illuminate the house to help you find your needle? And she said, don't ask me such questions. Help me or keep quiet. And they all stopped and they couldn't understand why she was looking for the needle that she lost in the house outside in the street. And then Rabia laughed at them and said, you are such clever people about such small things. When will you use your intelligence for bigger things? You are laughing at me for looking outside in the light for something that I lost in the house. Yet that's the exact same thing you do. And that's the exact same thing we do, and I did. I was looking for my lost needle outside, where there was light, the big lights of New York City. But I had lost that needle in my house, here at home. And it's so common for us, as young people especially, to look for solutions outside for problems that are inside. And it's only through experience, sadly, and time that you realize that you need African solutions for African problems. And this fellowship taught me that. And I'll share a bit more about that tomorrow. Now, finally, as I prepare to close, our board has worked tirelessly to prepare the program and the content and the speakers and the moderators and the topics for this conference. We held a series of communities of practice, online discussions. The discussions around those COPs formed the bulk of the content that we are having at this conference. Yesterday's debate came as a result of the first COP we had on Africa Funding Africa. The discussions that surrounded that COP are what caused us to have a debate yesterday. And other issues that were being discussed in the region from fellows across the continent as well and across the world helped us shape the content and the focus of this year's regional conference. Now, as I close, allow me to quote, or rather para-quote, if there's such a term, the late, great African literary genius, Chinua Achebe. Some of you may be familiar with this quote, but I've paraphrased it for good reason. A Arab chair who calls his fellows to a regional conference does not do so to redeem them from starving. They all have food in their own homes. When we gather together under the Johannesburg moonlight, it's not because of the moon, for every fellow can see it in his or her home country. We come together because it is good for fellows to do so. Therefore, let us continue with the team spirit and enjoy the power of togetherness. Let's smile, not because we have problems, but because we are stronger than our problems. Thank you very much.